Canadian Woman Suffrage by Jashina and Caitlin. In 1867 was Canada's first federal election. Only white men were able to vote in this election. All women and men of color were prohibited to vote. Time jump to 1940. One of the women named Nellie McClung started a campaign for women to vote. She was an advocate for equality among all. She even had a play called Women's Parliament, where men were the ones that were begging to vote. During the same year, World War I occurred. In this era, Canadian men were obligated to serve in the war. Many men from Canada fought overseas. Because of this, women contributed by filling in the jobs of the men, such as facility and office workers. In 1917, Sir Robert Borden, not related to Lizzie Borden, was elected Prime Minister of Canada. Sir Robert Borden put into place an act called the Military Voters Act and the Wartime Act. The Military Voters Act was for women in the military as nurses or as soldiers. The Wartime Voters Act was for women with sons, brothers, or husbands in the military. This allowed certain women rights to vote in federal elections. Finally, by 1921, all white women were allowed to vote. Now time jumped to the 1940s. During the 1940s, women of color, except for Aboriginals, were allowed to vote. Women from Asia, Africa, and other countries and continents were protected under these rights. Finally, by 1951 was the Indian Act, which incorporated voting rights for Aboriginals. Now that's it for the timeline. Here's some more info about the women's suffrage. Some of you may or may not know what the word suffrage means. Basically, suffrage means a right to vote. So when you come to think of it, the name of this revolution is Women's Right to Vote. Women were holding protests and petitions for a bill to be passed for women's vote. They've had many unsuccessful attempts with the government. There were backslashes, of course, against this, mainly from men, but this never stopped them from fighting. Pretty surprising to think that all women were able to vote in the 1960s. For the women's suffrage and the French Revolution, there were similarities such as they both involved revolution and reform. Both of the revolutions had an outcome that benefited the winning side, and how government was a big cause in these cases. Differences that we found in these two revolutions were when and where both revolutions occurred. The revolutions also had different causes. The French Revolution was caused by many different aspects, such as the country being in debt, where the women's suffrage was caused by women not having the right to vote. Another difference is that there was zero violence in the women's suffrage, and there was quite a lot of violence in the French Revolution. Now for a big thinking question. Do you think this opened a gate for women's rights in the future? We think yes and also no. Of course, there are many rights, like women being more involved in politics, or how every single country in the world finally legalized women to have the right to drive vehicles. And women in certain countries are able to have the right to proper education. By these signs, women are slowly being more equal to men. Women are being identified as independent, serious, and professional women that have the right to take over their lives and professions. But then there are a few problems such as sexual assault and women being paid less. Women and men have a serious income gap between them. It's quite upsetting to see that even in the 21st century, women are not completely equal to men. But anyways, thank you for listening.